All right, lovely. Let's jump right into topic number one. I thought it was very significant for us to jump right into asking, what does it mean to me to be a woman? And obviously turning that question around to you, what does it mean to you to be a woman? And landmark this point to decide or to consider and ponder on, what is it that I think I am, what I'm not, and what am I going to become? And then if we can all remember in a year, come back and ask that question again and see where our perspectives and all of our connecting with each other and all of our minds coming together, what that has changed in us or strengthened in our convictions that we currently have, or whatever else happens here. So when I ask that question to myself, I can't help but acknowledge my very first instinct is that I am a creative force. I have always been very naturally and passionate about the arts and creating, but I never really knew that power until I became pregnant with my son. I tapped into a side of myself and started to further realize, just beyond research, that there really was a part of myself, if not the majority of myself, that I didn't know or understand. And I also had to question what type of woman or principles I was, because I would be setting an example. When I found out I was having a son, I would be setting an example for the type of women or the behavior for women that he would expect or accept from women in the future in his life. And so those questions also lead me into covering the male's influence in my life. Being a companion to the masculine is very significant to me as a woman. I had no clue that I had no clue what it meant to be a woman. Like I told you in the welcome video, I didn't really have the guidance or the defining of our difference in what we are, other than what society was teaching me, which didn't ever really feel quite enough, if for lack of a better term. And yes, I'm adjusting my bra strap, but your girls, you understand. So anyways, I could go on YouTube for an hour and talk about my love, but I won't. He has brought an element into my life of my feminineness that I hadn't anticipated, but having him in my life has provided me the tools to understand and create and become the woman that I always knew I was supposed to be, and I had always desperately wanted to be, and I was seeking. I just didn't quite know how to get there. And because he was so strong in his masculinity, his masculine power, not like alpha male beefcake, but just in his masculine nature, through that and observation and conversation and more research, I was able to slowly begin to take my place as the feminine, as the woman, and really appreciate it for the first time. And so I think it is very important to acknowledge that, to me, to being a woman is my place with the masculine, and that balance of the two. And that's why I emphasize it here on the site, instead of dominating one over the other. So that also leads me into another element, which is being a mother. And I can say that my son is my greatest accomplishment, and he is amazing, and another man in my life I could go on forever talking about on YouTube. But I also feel that for those who are not mothers yet, or who can't become mothers or choose not to be, I feel as if there may be potential there for them to be the mothers of society, because to me there's a responsibility as a woman to be the mother of society. And if you look back at the loss of the matriarchy, or the step back of the matriarchy, whether it's through suppression or choice, we can't deny, when we look at the state of being that humanity is in that we're hurting. And it's almost as if you look at the world, and I can see children who need a mother in the sense of the behavior, the development. So to me, that is a very heavy responsibility. And I know a lot of people will think it's not my responsibility to fix the world. I have enough to deal with on my plate. But at some point, we have to stand back up in the power that we used to have and take our place back, because we need that balance back in the world. And I say this not discrediting that women were never warriors, because we were. I don't know if it was by choice. I don't know if it was by culture. I don't know if it was by protecting their society from invaders. For whatever reason, we partook. And I also am aware that there were societies that would never move forward in positions or decisions without consulting the women, because they appreciated and understood that there was an aspect of themselves that they didn't have, that the woman carries, and that they needed to make the proper choice. And so I think that acknowledging our responsibility in that area is important to me as a woman, because it's going to make all those little dents that are necessary. And at some time, we have to stand back up, because if we don't, we're destroying ourselves. We are the creative force. So if we don't act, where does a creation happen? So I know it's kind of a heavy question, so let's lighten it up, because my favorite part is the next topic for me being a woman is pleasure. I started reading The Art of Seduction because I wanted to add the book into my shop as a possible book that women would be interested in while we were going through all these different topics on the site. And so when I was listening, or I was reading and doing audiobook, but when I was going over the content of the book, the author brings up the concept that women are by nature beings of pleasure. And for me, it was like, ding, hold on a second. I don't know why that never clicked for me, but I started to realize that women are exactly that. And I mean, if you really consider it, we are nurturers. We do like to bring about feelings of good. We love to adorn ourselves in jewelry and embellishments. We love to laugh and have a good time and be beautiful. And I mean, even on the intimate level, we love knowing the immense amount of pleasure that we can bring. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, and please give me your opinions, but the concept of being an entity of pleasure, I loved it. I loved it, and I began to finally claim it and own it. And I think that there can truly be a whole new interesting dynamic to our site and our conversations if women do start to connect and own that. And I know that because of the epidemic of sexual abuse, that it is very difficult for women to claim their selves, their bodies, their sexuality without being made out to be the women all over the internet who are shaking their kadunks for everybody to see. And I mean, there's a fine line there. And so I am very excited to make that another element that we cover and redefine and figure out what it is we want to be, in a place where we feel safe to explore that boundary and to maintain that type of self. And so lastly, all I can say is that, just to reiterate, to me it's a creative force, a companion, a mother, and an entity of pleasure. And I know that there is a very, again, significant duality to me that I realized as a woman. If I stopped resisting the parts of myself that weren't like myself, which I'm referring to the men, I started to realize that I could appreciate and I enjoyed the parts that were like me, but the parts that weren't like me I was trying to change them because they weren't like the way I was. They weren't going with my flow. And so when I stepped back and I stopped resisting that and learned to appreciate it for its differences and support that, my whole life changed. And it continues to change, and I continue to get better and better at that. It didn't just happen overnight for me. And so I think that it may be something I would like to hear as well from you ladies, is how you feel, or if you've experienced this yourself and how it's changed circumstances for you. And lastly, I guess there's a whole aspect of myself that's a blank canvas that I want to get messy with paint, and I don't know what's going to go on there, and that's the point of why we're here. And I think that's going to be the greatest part, because all of those other things are semi items that are kind of outside of myself, and I feel like the part that's going to be on the canvas along with the creative force is another part of myself that will be mostly internal. And so I was a little bit scared initially because I felt like an empty carcass, like an empty shell, not knowing what I was. But now I had to change my perspective and realize I could be an empty carcass and be sad about it, or I could be a blank canvas. And I got really, really excited because it was an opportunity to become whatever I wanted to be. So please go below. You will see that there are boxes for you to either leave an audio comment, a text comment, or a video response. And I'm hoping most of you will do video responses. I love seeing faces. I love seeing expressions, and let me know, what does it mean to you to be a woman?